Right, good afternoon. Welcome to another one of these. I'm joined by the illustrious duo. And here we are, staring out into the abyss of what have we got to go? 5 days, 4 days, 6 days before we play again. The mighty Tottenhams. Tony, great to see you back with us, back in the land
Thank
of the
you.
living. We nearly sold your stuff last Thursday. Chris looks
You wouldn't get much for it, mate. Don't worry. You wouldn't get
Chris
much for it.
looks as contemplative as usual. Presumably, there's a dead gas man or a postie outside his front door. So where are we, gents? What have we got to talk about? Who is still recovering from cartwheeling after the magnificent performance and victory against Manchester United? I know I'm still a bit fizzy around the edges from the excitement of that
I'm
game.
actually recovering from hypothermia because Sunday at the Tottenham Stadium was colder than cold, and there wasn't much animation or excitement or enjoyment to get me moving my funky bits and gesturing to the players on the pitch. It was a very dull, overwhelming experience.
You should have put a big coat on and just stared at your feet, apart from doing a fist pump when a goal went in. That's what Ange appeared to be doing.
Yeah.
I got the sensation that his bacon was well and truly saved. Good goal. All goals are good. There's no pecking order. Wasn't a screamer, but it went in and they count. Tony, how did you feel? Were you moved?
Only like a bowel movement. For me,
Which at your age is not to be sniffed at, I'd imagine.
Well, absolutely, mate. You know, it comes to something when you get a letter from the NHS asking for a sample so they can check you for bowel cancer. That's when you know you're in trouble.
Do you know? After I had that seizure thing, they were supposed to invite me to a clinic for old men that fall over in pubs, and the envelope arrived, and I giddily opened it, and they too wanted to interview me for their bowel cancer jamboree that they were hosting. So I did the typical blokey thing, and I put it straight in the bin.
Ignored it.
Yeah, sod that. I'm not encouraging bad news at this stage.
The same with the text messages demanding I go for a MOT as I'm approaching sort of 50 years of age. But the thought of anybody putting their fingers up my ronson, no thanks. I'd rather play the lottery of life.
Yeah,
you think you go to the wrong doctors, Chris. You must go to the wrong doctors, mate. They don't go anywhere near mine. I can tell you.
I've approached that period in life where I'm telling people I'm getting away with it. How are you? I've managed to pull off another day. I'm doing quite well.
Yeah, dodge that particular death bullet.
I've actually blocked. This is just to let people know who they're dealing with here. I've actually blocked my GP surgery and my bank, both from but by communicating on my phone. I'll tolerate an email, but everything is gamified. There's nothing straightforward anymore. It's all in the title field of the email. They say, "Have you had your account emptied by a nasty man?" All they're selling is fear. GP surgery. Come in and get injected with a fire extinguisher because you might die if you don't. Opposed to you almost certainly will die if you do. But yeah, so I'm keeping a very low profile at the moment. This moving house thing is killing me. I thought I was on top of things, and I've been kidding myself all along. And I've actually packed the frying pan that I was going to make smash burgers with this evening. And I haven't written on the boxes what's in them.
That sounds like Ange's plan for our team, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got Ange in charge of the cooking tonight. He's on a flyer. He's doing a coaster for a bit of pin money during the week.
Fancy a kangaroo steak, mate?
Chuck it on the barbie, fella.
Yeah.
I thought the game was dreadful. I didn't enjoy it. We have been involved in worse games. I think it was interesting that the returning players made the impact that we suggested that they might. I didn't see anything I was particularly impressed with. I'm concerned about this Tell guy. I'm not seeing a great depth of quality there.
No, neither am I. It's a telling thing that it's a telling thing. Boom, boom. Here we go. Pun central.
Fantastic, mate.
Yeah, it's fantastic, mate. We've got him on a 4 or 5 month loan with no option to buy, from what I read, and which says everything to me about what he is. And if they had any confidence in him as any sort of decent player, then they would have had negotiated some option to buy him. The fact they've only got him on a 4-month loan, and they had to literally persuade him up to the last second to actually come to the club.
It was a multi-hour sales pitch on the phone to get him
Honestly,
over the line.
you got the Three Stooges all equally trying to fuck it up as much as possible, and it's just it just suggests to me this guy ain't worth it. He's not worth it. He was
My understanding was that it was the obligation that put him off coming. So they did try and put the obligation in. I think there was a 10 million rental fee paid for the cost of the loan. We've picked up all of his wages until the end of the season. And then if we want to turn that into a permanent transfer, they're talking about 50, 60 million. So they did have every desire to try and sign him.
I'm not being funny, mate, but even if they did put that obligation in, there's no way I'd pay that money for him. Not even remotely close. Not even close.
I mean, a guy's got to eat. I wouldn't begrudge a man a meal, but 10 million to lend him for a few months, and then they want another 50 or another 10 million.
It's Levy time, isn't it? It's a classic Levy. He is the archetypal, football chairman, isn't he? All those great deals.
Or as it's known on the street colloquially, archetypal weasel.
Yes.
He spends an entire week putting out soft soap in friendly press column inches, and then goes and hides in Miami for the game where the heat was underneath him. Now, tell us, Christopher, you alleged that you were in the cold at the epicenter of the game. What was your reaction to the protest? Because down to our WhatsApp messages, you didn't see anything.
I must have been one of the few who didn't. I arrived at Finn's Seven Sisters about 2:30, did the 30-40 minute walk down from Seven Sisters to the stadium, and I must have been too late because I didn't see a single protester. I didn't hear a single murmur.
They did show it on Sky, didn't they? They did show the protest on Sky. There were a few hundred there, looked like.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was quite deceptive, because they showed a video which was taken at sort of, that awkward level that we hate watching football matches at, where it isn't quite, the camera's not quite high enough.
I call that the Bristol City view. Have you seen the games at Bristol City? Oh my God, it's horrible. I get vertigo watching them.
that actually consists of a bloke holding a thing on a stick, but you've got that view where it sort of merges a lot of your angle because of the angle, and then they showed it from a sort of sideways up, like a more professional angle. And what looked like thousands of people suddenly became hundreds. I thought they did really well. I'm not digging them out on their turnout. I thought they looked quite inspired. I only counted one beer can, which for me is never a good thing on one of those. But again, change. I've got different socks on to the socks I was wearing yesterday. But has it made a big difference to the world? Not really. Could have probably got another day out yesterday socks, because I wasn't really up to much. But I don't think change is the way forward. And as I've said repeatedly, I wish everybody well in their efforts, but you missed the bloody boat. Should have been doing this. Should have been putting the squeeze on these bastards before they knocked down the other stadium. Simple as that. Once the thing was built, and as I said before, that peculiar pornography where they're all going, "Ooh, the girders, ooh, the girders," didn't get me aroused at all. You missed the boat.
They're now going similar process now, aren't they? Aren't they?
So you've drifted in,
turned into a Dalek again.
You've drifted into 1970s comedian who's got a faulty microphone there. We're getting every other syllable, and now he's incorporating his mime act, which is great. We're getting a smorgasbord of his entertainment skills. No, Chris, do you want to fill the void as we hope that Tony hasn't come down with anything permanent?
So it's after the horses bolted in respect to the protests. Good luck to everybody. We all know that people like to take the moral high ground in the victory, so numbers are often exaggerated, or propaganda comes to mind. But good luck to the guys and girls who are passionate Tottenham fans. Will it achieve something? No, it won't. It won't achieve anything. But
it's a pity, because it has shown that if you ignore some of the more toxic individuals that insist on getting involved in these things, which is life, if you ignore that, then and put to one side the fact that they've missed the boat, it is refreshing to show that we could actually galvanize something. And as you say, the passionate fans, heart's in the right place, but alas, as you remarked a week ago, and what did they do afterwards? They all soldiered in and went in and bought beer and Marmite sandwiches or whatever they did. So it was futile in the end. Was there anything particular about that game that interested you, that was positive at all?
The final whistle, the 3 points, but between the kickoff and the final whistle, we were served up with 90 minutes of mediocrity. And let's be truthful, H, if United had anything about them, they would have got something from that game, because they missed a hatful of chances, specifically Garnacho. But it's the same old song, isn't it?
I can't remember the exact figures, but the anticipated expected goal ratios were very similar for both teams, which for a very mild 1-0 victory. And I think that's a fair description. It went to highlight the absence of killer creativity and actually putting some wit together. Neither side demonstrated anything. Like I say, I'm not going to take anything away from Maddison's goal, because that's treacherous territory to go into. But it was the goal that won the game. So hoo-ha, and we won, you lost. And that's what the record books will show. But did you want to be there? Did you want to be in the cold? Were you revved up? I'd question that. I really would.
I'm a loyal Tottenham fan. I go to every game, as the words of a certain song pronounce. But have I enjoyed going to many games this season? No, not at all. Would I have rather been at home on the settee with the dogs, my feet up, and drinking a can of lager and not having a 2-hour commute home? Absolutely, I would on a Sunday evening. But
it's bizarre, because we've been fed this Ange ball line, which gets wheeled out and solidly abused sort of every couple of weeks. I haven't seen anything resembling that Ange ball that we got a threat of in the first 10 games.
Ange ball's nothing. There is no such thing as Ange ball.
No,
we've got very trigger happy clapping fans who 1 or 2 performances, they start heralding people, generational talents. They start saying, "Oh, he's a baller. He's cooking. He's top 10 manager."
Yeah, and, cooking on a radiator. Get back to me when you.
But the reality is that we've said this time and time again. It was a 10 game manager bounce, where people weren't aware of the tactics they were going to deploy, but they quickly worked those out. And from that point on, we've gone from gung ho, high paced, attacking football to something which you're not really sure what it is. We're not a defensive team, and we're no longer tearing the trees out the ground from an attacking perspective, because we're very limp-wristed and impotent up front and need a shot of Viagra to get us going. Because
we need a shot of something, because I mean, players have got to come back. There's the thing to factor in about being match fit, because there's a difference between being fit and passing all the tests and being able to run in and out of the cones or whatever they do in a record time, and actually being able to play the ball and to be up for a Premier League game, which is not an easy task under any circumstances. And I'm just not feeling it at the moment. I'm not feeling it at all, and I haven't felt it for weeks. Fanar. It just doesn't feel like. And I mean, you can understand it, but Ange is selling, because they're all selling up their product.
Hope and dream,
and we've got the hope. I'm trying to
not
pop the microphone. Yeah, it's not the hope that kills you. It's knowing that the hope that kills you. Whoops! There we go. He's back in the room, folks. Just like.
Can you hear me again? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. You're clear to land at the airport.
My computer's got AIDS.
That's now we've worked out what happened. You did have a virus.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't feel any sense of Ange ball, and he has come out with this line in one of his recent pressers, which I commented on the Substack, and said basically, like, you keep talking about when all these players come back, you are hanging your hat on one big hook there, and how firmly is that hook attached to the door or the wall, because I'm not feeling it at all. I mean, I know there's going to be a certain bit of class comeback when we get certain players, but I just don't see it. And why is he taking Maddison off again? Maddison, who's one of those players who can bring that extra zing, and he's supposedly not fallen out with Ange, but then equally there was no comment on the, like I say, Premier League news, injury news website is excellent, and all it does, it bases on what the club's release about player conditioning, and Ange just didn't tell us anything.
The problem was again
I
on
don't
Sunday.
understand. Go on, Chris.
He did that without moving his lips.
The problem was again on Sunday. It was the centre of the park, and you had Bergvall and Bentancur playing alongside each other. Neither of them are defensive-minded midfielders. Neither of them can put their foot on the ball. Neither of them have got a 40-yard pass in the locker. And all of our midfield was backwards, sideways. We were passing in 8-yard triangles, and there was no dynamic forward balls. There was no forward movement. Nobody got the ball, could beat 2 or 3 men, and then ping it into one of the channels. So once upon a time, we had a Tommy Huddleston, Tommy the Tank, who could play the quarterback role, ping a 40-yard ball over the top. We had none of that.
Well, don't forget, Ange ball, and I'm talking in the sort of esoteric sense here, doesn't do long balls. The volume of long balls that we produce and the poor quality of them, that, you know, it speaks, you know, tells its own story. So that inventiveness, and I'm not a big fan of the hoof it up the pitch sort of Watford days, but as you say, a well constructed 30-40 yard pass, hopefully diagonally in a sort of sexy way, can make a big difference. But we don't see any of that. What we see is, it reminds me of watching bloody England under Gareth Southgate.
Well, you look at the Chelsea-Brighton game on the Friday night, and I think it was Bart Verguben, the Brighton goalkeeper, put a 40-yard ball up front. That Carol Mitoma took it down with one foot, put it over his shoulder, and then put it onto his right and buried it past the Chelsea keeper. And there's times when going direct doesn't hurt you. Again, Vicario came back into the side on Sunday, made some good saves, but he scares the living daylights out of me when he tries to play out from the back, as we do this thing where he either passes it to Davis, who then rolls it across the box to Danso, or it's Danso to Davis. And against a better team, that's one of the worst United sides I've ever seen. Against a better team, better in the press, we will experience problems if we persevere with that. But then that moves us away from why they signed the Czech lad, because we were told he was a sweeper keeper who was really good at playing out and he could ping the ball around. So you've then compromised that style of football with that keeper to bring back somebody who hasn't got any of those capabilities and is limited with the ball at his feet.
I found that the sort of binning off, because the way I look at our goalkeeping situation at the moment is that we've got 3 okay keepers, but of all of them, Kinski looks probably the best. And I really puzzled, because I'm not shy of saying, oh, he's rubbish when you scratch the surface about any player, but I thought Kinski got a bit of a hammering, I thought there was a bit much. I mean, it's all very well, and I'm going to pull this one out of the archive, as our Lord and Master Harry Redknapp told us many years ago. People want goalkeepers that don't make mistakes. They don't exist. You know, you're walking into a shop and saying, do you sell everlasting pencils? No, sir. I can offer you lots of different pencils, but we don't have ones that last forever. And that is the deal with goalkeepers. You're going to get a goalkeeper who, at some point, things don't go 100% his own way. And I just felt there was almost like a bit of a pile on. Sorry.
Yeah, the problem with what happened with Kinski was that when he's asked to perform instinctively, you know, shot stopping, etc., he's very, very good. But when he's asked to do things under pressure, he's not so good, because he's just not used to the pace of the Premier League. I mean, Liverpool was a classic game, wasn't it? He just got exposed horribly there because he just didn't. You could tell he's not used to being closed down that much, to being harried, pressured that much. Yeah. So he's got the fundamentals and he's got the abilities, but he just needs to understand the game more. And I thought it was really, I've said this, you know, he looks decent, but if you're looking at somebody like Brandon Austin, who had 3 or 4 games where he didn't put a foot wrong,
Yeah.
clearly understands the Premier League.
Yeah.
My attitude to that would have been, well, bring Kinski in early, by all means, but just let him see it for a few games to get an understanding of how quick it really is. And then if you feel he's really up to it, then we can get him in there. But they just, this philosophy of ditching Brandon Austin, Kinski goes straight in, Vicario's back, ditch Kinski.
Yeah.
It just smacks of somebody who hasn't got a freaking clue what he's doing.
It stinks of short-termism, and it stinks of naivety.
Yeah.
It's almost like they got the audience to hold cards up, like the old ice scores, and they go, "Yeah, I thought you had a good." Oh no, you didn't have a good game. There's a few sixes over there. We'll put.
But that's echoed. That similar thought is echoed in respect of Archie Gray. So Archie Gray, was he rested or was he dropped at the weekend? So you had Davis playing alongside Danso. You had some players coming back, and you thought, now's the opportunity, if you took it, to put a supposed genuine defensive-minded midfielder who's been asked to play right back, left back, centre half. When was the last time he actually played a central defensive position? And is he in fact a central defensive midfielder? Because I don't think he's played in that role for over 18 months to 2 years, as he was playing right back for Leeds. Yeah. But he finds himself out of the team through no fault of his own. Him and who was arguably the man of the match on Sunday, Jed Spence and Bergvall, those three come out of the recent torrid run holding their heads high. But again, some of these things Postecoglou does. You've got Pedro Porro, who's been shocking. He cannot defend to save his life. But the Jed Spence has come from nowhere. He's almost had a Bale type moment where he's resurrected himself and proven what a decent player he is. But you bet your bottom dollar that when a doggy comes back, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he gets dropped and he perseveres with Porro on the right, a doggy on the left.
Do you know who Postecoglou is? But for anybody who doesn't watch football, but we've all seen the dreadful makeover programs. Postecoglou is the punter who owns the house, and he says, "Oh, I've got a budget of £40,000 or whatever, and there's loads of things that need doing, like the downstairs bathroom doesn't work, blah, blah, and he wants to put in a loft conversion." And the person running the show says, "That would be nice, and I can see it looking great, but it's going to add very little value to the property." Yep. And you need to put in a proper wet room where your downstairs bathroom is downstairs, and a sauna or whatever it might be you want to do, and then you can do the kitchen. That isn't a finished article either, but you want to sink 2/3 of your cash into a loft conversion. And it's almost like, because they always come out with that phrase, "No, I've decided. I won't take advice from an expert. I've decided." So his tactical awareness is, it has to almost hit utter breaking point before he decides to change it up. And that's what we saw, where he switched the way the team looked, and they couldn't cope with it because it wasn't as the Ange ball had been in the past.
Well, the thing is, as well, based on what you said there, Chris, was quite pertinent. Was Gray dropped, or was it? I hope he was rested, because boy, did he deserve a rest.
Yeah.
So I really, really hope it was just a rest. But if he was resting, why bring him on for the last 15 minutes? I don't get that. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Just leave him out. Just if you truly want to rest somebody, leave him out of the squad so you don't get an option.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make a decision whether you're going to really do it or not really do it at all.
Absolutely,
you've got to hide their boots.
As you've been away for a few weeks, Tony,
as
you've been dying for a few weeks, and you've now emerged from the flames. Tell me the last time that Heung-min Son had a good game for Tottenham.
No, that's not a fair question, Chris, is it really? That's a loaded question, because we know he hasn't had a good game for some time.
And I
felt it on Sunday. Sunday, I noticed that Sunday, I thought, was two shite teams, and it was just a question of who was less shite on the day, and it just happened to be us. Yes, there were some things, like we said. Got Spence, who I thought played really well, and actually is deceptively fast as well. You don't think he's necessarily that fast, but he was going past players really quick. I know it was United, so we can say that half of them were geriatrics anyway. I mean, Casemiro could have, I think if he'd have wandered around on the zipper frame, he would have been faster. But Spence is deceptively fast and is good at retaining the ball and is good at actually passing. And it was just, for me, it was just a case of Son there was, and don't get me wrong, I think we can all say that Son has been a great player for us, and what he's done and some of the memories, fantastic. But boy, did he look like just hack him off, just get him off, just give somebody else a go, because he's just not doing anything for the team now, just nothing for the team now.
Do you know what? Odebear came on with, I don't know, 10 minutes to go, and he had 2 take-ons, and he beat his man on both occasions. In the 70 to 80 minutes that Son had played, he didn't beat a single man. And once upon a time, you think back to the Burnley goal where he got the ball like a galloping horse, and he just kept on galloping and galloping and galloping.
Yeah.
Now he gets the ball, he looks devoid of confidence. All he wants to do is go sideways or backwards, and he's looking for the pass.
He's also looking. He's also
as well.
He's also looking for the referee more and more frequently.
Yeah.
I mean, Maddison does it like Grealish does it. You know, it's part of his game. He will suddenly flick his heels up and, oh, I've been shot. But Sonny is now embracing that sort of dark art. And it doesn't do him any favors, because it just is symptomatic of the way he's gone down the Swanee a little bit.
When you're looking for a referee, basically you're trying to deflect away from yourself, because you know you've had a stinker, and you're trying to see if you can buy a decision from the ref to make it look like it wasn't your fault.
You are shopping, aren't you? You're shopping.
Yeah,
you've gone from somebody who was on a mission, and you've decided to go shopping because you realised you're probably not going to get away with it.
Well, his ball retention was awful throughout that game. The amount of times he lost the ball in a tackle, or when he was trying to pass players, I lost count of it.
Yeah,
and it was shocking, really.
It wasn't reserved just to him. Kulu on the opposite flank had as bad a game. He so slow on it.
Kulu's tired.
But so slows the team down.
There's a player who is suffering from our old friend fatigue. He isn't enjoying this process or this passage of the season, and the reason for that is that his legs have gone. He's not in trouble. We're very fortunate that he doesn't appear to be particularly partial to pulling up an injury. He's not, but he's being offered, I would suggest, as Ange has offered so generously to many others, the opportunity of a hamstring with the volume of games, because of the style, the manner that he's running in. And I read something during the week that they're supposedly looking at the way that Mickey van der Ven plays in the respect of his running, to coach him that his running won't cause him to be so open to picking up injuries, because apparently Usain Bolt, another, all these various different people who are known for their running had to be taught a technique that took control of their innate ability and then safeguarded them from ending up in hospital. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with him. But I think the volume of match minutes that a number of these players are getting is getting to them. And if you want to see somebody who's queuing up to go wrong, it's Kulu, because he's moving around like he's shunting a piano. The
only good thing about Kulu, because he's not blessed with blistering pace, that's less likely for him to get a hamstring problem. That is his own. If there's a weakness in there, and I hate to use the word weakness because he's been so good for us, but he's not blessed with blistering pace. So I think that probably stops him from getting the hamstring a la Mickey. But you are right. He looks dead on his feet now, and he just looks like he could do the rest. The problem is that, again, Ange keeps saying you mentioned about the fact that he's saying, when we get all our players back, boy, this is going to be a good team. We'll get all our players back, and 70% of them will be absolutely knackered.
Well, when we had all those players before they went missing originally, we weren't a great team. So what's the difference?
I mean, it would be wonderful. I mean, it's all very well coming out with these lines. It's like telling somebody that you love them. That sounds very positive. Oh yeah, I'd like to be loved. That sounds really nice. That's a bit of adoration. These are positive things. But what does that consist of? Because we've seen these players uninjured, and bar those first 10 games, we didn't see anything particularly electric from them. We were all hoping we'd return to those first 10 games of the previous season, but the bad form predates this season. This season hasn't been good, and this is the season people are talking about the injuries and blah blah blah, but they're not talking about how they got
Well,
the injuries.
We've been in the malaise since the Chelsea game last season. That was the
Yeah.
one that broke the bank.
The form
That's
that
the one
we
when we all sat there thinking, Jesus Christ, is this bloke for real? We're down to 9 men, and instead of just trying to shut up shop and make it respectable, we're going forward like Custer's last stand. You're thinking, what on earth is this all about? It was bonkers, lunacy.
The bad form started. You
On
can
that
say
game.
without any hesitation at that Chelsea game,
Mm.
and he's still going today. Anybody talking about this season is, to use that Ange word, being a bit naive, because you can't just judge this season on the snapshot of the last 2 months, which Ange is. And I keep saying this, he is shaping the narrative of the conversation to in a very binary fashion, and saying it's only been 2.5 months and it's only these injuries, and once those are gone, and it's like, no, that's not right. Why are they injured? And why aren't you talking about before the 2.5 months? You were poor before people were hobbling off.
Do you know what? He's got to show a little bit of invention and dare, which he won't, because we know he's a stubborn old thing. But Son is not going to get any better. He's 33 this summer. Mother age catches up with us all. Everybody's best days come to an end. But you've got Odebear, you've got Mikey Moore, and dare I say, you've got Brennan Johnson. You need to start utilising those guys, because they can't be any worse. Or that young lad, Ajayi, who came off the bench
who excited
scored.
all of us.
Yeah,
We all thought
and he
he
got
was
the
good.
ball and he drove forward and he had purpose and he really took it. We've not seen him since. And you're thinking, why stick with failing products that are going backwards if you know that bloke's not going to be here next season? You're building for the future. You're telling us it's a youth project. Give these youth some minutes and see what they're capable.
And why not? And why not, instead of spending 10 million on someone like Tell, who Bayern couldn't wait to get rid of, why don't we just stick to a couple of these youth guys in, and we can save a bit of money, which surely would be music to Levy's ears, let's face it.
But you see, the problem is that this is the perfect storm. That if this was a Venn diagram, one of my favourite things that's ever been invented, but in the middle of the two circles, you've got Ange's stubbornness and you've got Levy's insane commercial drive, you have hope. And the hope is not the expectation, because that's what businesses use. They use expectations, but hope, which only exists in parallel universes like professional football. The hope is that Sonny will give us a farewell season to remember. We'll get his greatest hits, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen. It really doesn't. Like I say, the phrase is, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling that happening. Why is he, after an entire season of being pretty mediocre, uncharacteristically against the back of his career, which we're all aware of, but why is that going to right itself in his final season, when you say Mother Age has brought the handicapper in?
Too many people can't see it for what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. He's been a great servant, but everybody's day comes to an end. And rather than trying to hold the emotional sentiment, we've got to cut it free, cut the umbilical cord, and say, as one person leaves, another one enters, and let's look for the future, not dwell about the past and think about this.
But that what you just said there sums up what's wrong with this football club, and in particular its support. You're using very nasty, abrasive language there, if you don't mind me saying.
Sorry to offend you.
Yeah, I mean, I have to sleep tonight. You're talking about cuts. You're talking about umbilical cords. You're talking about stuff which is pretty dark. All I want to hear is, and this is what I've heard all week, is Ben Davies had an absolute belter. You can really depend upon him. Can we extend his contract? No. What we should be asking ourselves is, why is this guy, who is vanilla through him like a stick of rock, this vanilla footballer, still on our books after a decade? Because all I see is a less irritating version of Eric Dyer. And I'm going to keep saying it till I die, with a really stupid haircut. Well, I would expect to see a middle-aged housewife in Hull wearing down a bingo hall.
If you're going down, if you're talking about Barnett's, mate, that Ashley Neville haircut's got
brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah.
Who's he?
The female Tottenham player that I posted last night.
The one with the hat on. The one with the hat on.
The one with the Spock haircut from Star Trek. Honestly, my God, what a Barnett that was.
Yeah, well,
was-
I
that
mean,
was
and
astonishing.
we should give an honourable mention here to Jonathan Liu in the Guardian, who did a smashing hit piece, and he did a decent one a couple of weeks ago. And this time he dragged screaming and kicking in centre stage the women's team, which is suffering from the same malaise as the men's team. Doesn't win anything, and
Not
all the
even
other
close to
clubs.
winning anything.
Now, this is a very weird sample group because women's football is, to use that horrible buzzword of this generation, unsustainable, which is to me means to say to ordinary people, it doesn't make any sense because you're all the money you're putting in, you never get back. Advertisers won't pay the same going rates for it. It's never going to, and this is why DEI is such a popular thing, at the risk of bringing us back to all these things. But that's why DEI is so popular with everybody. I watched a thing on the GB News this morning, and something like 50% of NHS employees, and that's right up to consultants, are of mixed ethnicity.
From the Philippines.
But yet they are spending £80 million a year on DEI. So they're accrediting people for what's this Google verifying Google update? Oh, the lights don't go out. But they're crediting people for doing work for a business which is the poster boy of equity and inclusivity. And like I say, the women's team, back to the world of reality, the women's team is suffering from the same problems, the same levyisms that the men's team is. And if you want to really get rid of this guy, that's the sort of article that you need to be reading and you need to be parroting and quoting from, because that really sums up ENIC's involvement in football and how they bring that magical kiss of death to what happens on the grass.
Again, on Sunday, listening to the punditry, Jermaine Defoe again. You know, we've had 2 weeks of him speaking absolute sense.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, speaking and literally telling it like it should. You think, shouldn't that be something that Ange actually says or identifies? And yet he doesn't, because he hasn't.
No,
because Melbourne Raw doesn't play that way.
He's got
that's such a parochial. Yeah. But you can't
engaged at the same time. Can't think independently for himself. Put him in front of the camera. He's a disaster.
Come on, Tony. Next thing you're going to be asking him is to hold two conflicting ideas in his head at the same time. I mean, what is he? A gymnast? A scientist? This is just unreasonable.
I know it's unreasonable for him to express or the ability to hold any sort of form of rational opinion. But honestly, it's just that these guys, you know, you've got somebody like. Again, this comes back to this we were talking about before about Ange and where he's come from in his history. He was never great as a footballer. He's made some minor achievements in like getting Australia to the final of the Asia Cup. Yeah,
which was full of rank nations.
Yeah, exactly. You had South Korea first, Australia second, United Arab Emirates third. You're that bastion of soccer.
Maybe you don't get kicked Saudi Arabia into the gutter.
Yeah,
don't mess with the tea towels.
Saudi Arabia were fourth. You know, well, hey, let's go for that. And then you look at Jermaine Defoe and who he's played for and what he's done in the game. Okay, he's not necessarily won any. He may have won. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But you just look at the teams he's played for. Look at where he's been and the levels that he's played at.
He does what it says on the tin. He's a striker who scored loads of goals. It's the same with Harry Kane. You can say, but what are we going to talk about the Audi Cup now when it comes to silverware? Yeah. But he's a striker. He does what it says on the tin, and he scored lots of goals. Now that might be arguably not so fulfilling, but from a footballing perspective, and certainly from a punditry perspective, if you ask Jermaine Defoe to give you a quote, a few lines on whatever it is, he'll give you excellent copy. He gives good copy, and he speaks in a way that ordinary men speak. You know, it's not like listening to some gibbering secondhand car salesman or some scientist. You know, there's nothing confusing going on here. And he just says, well, you can see when the ball breaks there and they haven't got enough men there. And you're thinking, actually, yeah, you've just kind of outlined what I was getting the £8 for the last 30, 40 minutes watching the game.
Have you
seen why isn't the club bringing him in? And one of the reasons they're not going to bring him in is because it's ever so rude. Ange was in the middle of managing the team, and that sounds very patronising. He's Australian and he's lovely. I think he's going to do really well.
Have you seen the video doing the rounds of when the players came off the pitch on Sunday, and Odegaard and Kulu, walked straight past Ange, completely dismiss a handshake from him, dismiss a pat on the back, don't even make eye contact off the pitch. And if ever you've seen a video that says, they haven't got the time of day for him, it was that.
Yeah, I listen. You're not going to have to convince either Tony or myself as to Ange's worth in the world. And I think, like when we saw Kulusevski the other week, he was before one of the Europa games. He was pitching for Ange. I just was hearing a very professional sporting athlete talk. You don't need to believe him or to think that it's gospel, but you just have to understand that he's really doing a decent job as a sort of captain material. And then you contrast what Kulu said with what Sonny isn't saying, because he's not a captain. He's a political appointment, nothing to do with sport. It's all built on the back of his reputation. And it would have been much better if they wanted to go down this soppy, infantile and quite frankly effeminate thing of having a first captain and a second captain, a vice captain, a junior captain.
The leadership team, you mean?
Which we all know historically at this particular football club is worth its weight in polystyrene chips. Absolute farce. I mean, the last leadership team, sorry, was bloody Skippy,
Oliver Skip, Harry Winks, and a load of other chances. Yeah.
Oh right, this might be slightly. This is a slightly more old-fashioned view of these things, but when you're on the pitch, there's only one leader, and that's the captain, and he screams the bollocks out of you if you're not doing your job.
Correct.
And he directs traffic and gets into people. Might be an old-fashioned point of view. Roy Keane, John Terry, these sorts of players. Those players would scare the living crap out of you if you didn't do your job.
And have a go on your wife if you turned your back.
Well, there is that as well.
That's the level of involvement we're really looking for.
That was Ryan Giggs and John Terry, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ryan Giggs. There's a captain. There's a leader.
Yeah. I'd like to say that's him doing, going the whole hog. If you don't back your ideas up, I'm going to shag your missus.
Again,
yeah. But it's those old-fashioned captains or those hard men in the midfield, like the Graham Roberts and what have you, of the yesteryear, who would just go in there, go right, bang, there's a change. Look over and go, stay down there, son. That's the way to do it. I know it might sound old-fashioned because I know the game has moved on, and I accept all of that. But you still need those.
Johnson to this witchcraft you're peddling. I prefer Brendan Johnson. He skips challenges.
You're forgetting
Brendan Johnson is
so effeminate that when somebody jumped off the back of Son's missus, he'd probably be waiting there with a cup of tea and a warm wet towel for him.
Brendan Johnson is
the you silk hanky in for polishing them.
Brendan Johnson is one of the footballing equivalent of one of those dolls that you ask children to point at to say where they've been touched. Honestly, he's just so wet, so useless. It's just, I know he scored a load of goals, but they were more tap-ins and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he had a golden period, but he's had one golden period of about 10 or 11 goals. And apart from that, he's done nothing either side of that. And, again,
there's a massive Dele Alli vibe for me, and it's nothing to do with colour before some of you lunatics leap in. But with Dele Alli, you got good stuff. And obviously we hold two thoughts in our head, and the second thought is that his career flatlined. But he did good stuff. But outside of those high point moments, he was a work-shy fob of a footballer. And he that was the reality. So you get to the point where he comes off the pitch and you say, bloody hell, he's had 3 assists and a goal. That's like a 9 out of 10 performance, surely. But you actually look at the performance, and the performance was close to about 6.5 because of what you actually got wasn't great. And Brendan Johnson, he scores, and it's a 5 out of 10 performance.
I did think it was funny last week that Brendan Johnson was romantically linked with Lily Phillips.
With Postman Pat.
Yeah, Lily Phillips, the girl who'd been for 100 fellas on a given opportunity. So much so that you thought she'd eat him alive. He can't even beat his opposition fullback, so he's not going to go balls deep in her, is he? So only a few days later. Yeah.
No, that I mean, should I tell you something? And think of me as you may. I have no time for those sort of women. But when I saw that article my desire to read it was less than zero. I literally scrolled past it because I just thought, I'm getting scared even having this suggested to me, and I don't want to know anything about him, and I certainly don't want to know anything about her. And it was just grim. But yeah, I was aware of that. I mean, God
It
knows.
did
I
make
mean,
me
maybe
laugh.
they got
He
the
had
same agent or something.
Yeah, he had to put out a post the other day of him and his girlfriend romantically having a meal together. I was thinking that is a sign of the times we live in. But going back to men and proper men, and I'm not talking about you two shirt lifters, but I
I
thought,
tripped and fell in him,
yes, but
and I'm
thankfully,
very happy with my wife.
thankfully you haven't been feeling it for some time, as you said at the outset, H. But I thought Kevin Danso looked good on Sunday. I thought there looks a bit of a
Yeah,
man mountain.
decent
Got,
enough.
got some
I
pace
think there's
about him, and he brings the ball out, does everything that
I
Romero
think
doesn't do.
I think there's a ton of potential about that particular kid, and it's a much overused word at Spurs, but there definitely is something about him. And if anything, it doesn't contrast well with that Tell guy.
Yeah.
And I know we've discussed him, so perhaps don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. But I just don't think there's anything at all there really. But yeah, Danso looks like he's got a bit of fight in the dog, you know.
Yeah.
It was really funny. I saw this morning on the BBC, and the BBC is the bastion of journalism as it is. And apparently they're reporting from, where is it?
Fell in him.
From Build that Jamie, apparently Spurs are interested in buying Jamie Gittens from Borussia Dortmund.
Oh, the season tickets due to be renewed, are they?
Yeah, exactly that, isn't it?
Yeah.
85 million. And I've gone, you having a laugh. You're having a right giraffe on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll be having a Western Superman if we start spending 85 million on players that don't work. I mean, they need. I mean, it was you earlier actually. It was on the WhatsApp group, and you mentioned Tony. You mentioned about Manchester United and was saying about the what I've said for a long time, the interference at Sir Alex and Red Knight and board level, and that's one of the problems we've got at Tottenham. This team has no identity, because no coach has been allowed an opportunity to build something, form it in their own image.
Guys, my Ring doorbell's just informed me there's an Amazon delivery, so I'm just going to turn my camera off. I'll be back in 1 moment.
I'm waiting for the guys to take my telly and pictures down to start hammering on my Ring doorbell. So I thought there was a Chelsea thing he'd got there.
Sorry, did you say you've got some guys coming to hammer on your Ring?
Yeah, well, that'll happen later. But before that, I'm having a couple of TVs and
Can you just make sure you stop recording before that happens?
All right, I'm wearing a padded chair. I'll be fine.
You've got the tenor men, have you? You've got the tenor men ready.
Yeah, they've come to test the pressure. It's a new NHS initiative they're rolling out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I was like, that's an alternative way of testing for bowel cancer, isn't it?
Well, I've been throwing the letters in the bin. They decided to take matters into their own hands. That was what the last thing I heard. You know. What can you do?
What fantasy are we living in now? Where you spend £85 million for Jamie Gittens? What sort of fantasy land are people living in? Honestly.
Well, they've spun us so many lies in the past. You know, DeMeo, whatever his name was, with his image
Leandro Damião.
Yeah, Leandro Damião. Yeah, image rights of 60 million, and nobody knows what he looks like. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
image rights, no problem. I mean, you could that guy could literally hammer on your Ring doorbell, and you could be able to see him, and he's shouting, "I'm Leandro Damião," and you wouldn't be able to. We want to know what you got from Amazon.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Open the box now.
It's a male blow-up doll in the plumber's outfit, isn't it? That's what it is.
Come to take your telly away. So you're not going to show us. Are you going to tell us what's in the box?
It's a mystery. I'll save it for next time.
You got a funny colour there, Chris. I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. So moving swiftly on.
And there's this other fantasy as well, where they said apparently we tried really hard to sign. Was it? What's his name? Santiago
Jimenez.
That's it. Yeah, we tried to say that's another one of those classics. We tried.
Yeah, you can feel. I mean, I said it wasn't. I wasn't feeling it earlier, but you can feel what this club is up to by the way that they're dropping stuff in the press. And this is another juncture for me to blurt in about the press office. This is an incel telling another incel what he wants us to hear. There's no relationship with the truth. So all of these rumors, they come via journalists who are being like Matt Law, Gold My Beer. They're all the same. They're all the same, and that we're being fed what they've been fed. And there's no gravitas or decency to the whole thing. It's just peculiar. It's just very strange.
Or you get that horrible photo op with the king throwing an American football, and it's just like, that if anything said to you what the priority is within this business, it's that. Because where were the big celebs, and when that stadium was open, where was the grand announcements, all the celebrities, all that hoopla and everything like that? And yet you then come down to that, and you get the king throw, whether you're royalist or not, just saying as it is, it was you get the king throwing an American football in what is supposedly meant to be a football stadium.
Chris said last week, we touched on this, and Chris said last week, the king, whose son is honorary patron or chairman or whatever is of the FA or the Premier League or whatever it is, he's there in some sort of peacock capacity to shake hands and to be an ambassador, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the real story behind all of this, as you're throwing this misshapen ball or getting the monarch to throw it, is it's 6 years since we signed a 10-year deal, and you can still go and watch that sport anywhere else in the country. There's no exclusivity. They've not enhanced the deal. We're 6 years in. These worlds time turns very, very slowly. It's like the turning circle of the QE2. The QE2 doesn't change what's on the menu a week out of port because everything's already shipped away in the lockers and the fridges and the freezers. So if you want to know what Spurs are doing in year 10 of their deal with the NFL, now is the time that something would have come to light. And all we've had is this desperate cry for help. Oh, please don't forget we do American football. Can you take this misshapen ball and throw it, sir? And it's just a fawning spectacle. And I'm going to say it again, because I have to say everything again because people don't listen. But all of this junk we're witnessing now, I said was going to happen. I haven't published a single bloody word that hasn't come right. These people are charlatans. We need to get rid of them. Oh no, we're going to put up some girders. Oh, this is better than a naughty mag. And everything I've said has come right. And what happened?
And the fiasco with the naming rights of the stadium.
I told you the naming rights wasn't going to be a hot bun for sale because it was like a chameleon. It was so complex, so all things to all people that it had no identity. There's nothing about the place at all. And don't say, oh yeah, well you would say that. Oh, I think it's lovely. Well, nobody's put their bloody money up. Nobody's put their money up. And now we've got the same fiasco with the NFL, which I told you all. I was told by 2 independent sources on 2 different coasts in the US that when Levy went to see the NFL, the quote was he took a shit on the boardroom table because he went over there telling them how he was going to save them, how he'd seen the future and how he was going to make it work for them. And they'd never been so patronized in their lives. These are people who move in tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, and this is a guy who basically is operating a fish and chip shop and a scrapyard in Shepherd's Bush. It's embarrassing. But this was all told. This was all foretold by Cecil B. Demented here, and nobody listened. Very few people listened, but pleasantly some have. But it's all gone wrong, and it was all so predictable. And now they're wandering around with the bed sheets way after the ship was sailed.
And that's all linked into the success that the club has not enjoyed. It's all linked in, isn't it? When you don't know what you're doing, I mean, we said it consistently. Businessman, property empire, stellar, absolutely no problems whatsoever. Yeah. But first of all, you're a relative newcomer to the NFL. The NFL's been going for 70 years in its current, 60 years, probably 50 years in its current format. I think they know a little bit more about it than you do, Sunshine.
They turn over money like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's like when people don't understand how businesses operate. And I remember when I was living in Dublin, they had the toll gate put through the tunnel, for the Liffey or whatever the water was, and they only realised how lucrative it was. I mean, the people living in the island, and I include myself at the time, when they had it explained to them that they were having problems getting the volume of lorries to take the money away. I mean, you make the Scrooge McDuck joke about Levy, but he's so small time, but conversely, compared to the likes of the NFL, they've absolutely got it sweet. You don't give them advice, you beg them to give them a slice of their pie. That's how that works. And that's not what he did. He went there because he was so full of himself, little Napoleon. He's so full of himself, and he's got a 10-year deal. We're in year 6, and as I say, those worlds, they turn immensely slowly. It's glacial movement. You need to get the deals wrapped up and done. And it's year 6. It's year 6. You tell me. If they announce it tomorrow, I'll buy him a cake and I'll DHL it to him. But it's not happening.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit.
But the NFL have also, I know it's not necessarily talking about sort of Tottenham, but the NFL have also announced next year they're doing games in Madrid. They're doing a game in Madrid. So they're looking at alternatives. They've got games in Germany. They've got games in Madrid. They're looking at alternatives. They're looking at ways to actually take it away.
You know what? You know what they are, and this is the ugly word in the room. They're a massive fucking success.
Yeah,
they think on a global scale, and they are naturally global because it works. Everything else. It works for them, and we've got this crumb who can't even win an FA Cup, and we go to win the Carabao, the League Cup, and he sacks the manager 6 days beforehand. I'm conscious we're running out of time. I understand Chris has got to go and open his box from Amazon. We're gonna have to make a meme out of that. Tony, thank you very much. Sorry we lost you for a brief moment there, but you meandered and we got bored. So there's a button mark, kick him out. Christopher, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all for now. Don't forget, folks, keep it Tottenham. Right, end recording. That's the button.